أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذي يذهب الله عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أفوض أمري إلى الله بصيرا All right. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And welcome to yet another space moment of reflection into the verse of throne. So, in Ayatul Kursi, as we're moving forward, last week we were talking about the people who are our role models, especially the Holy Prophet, and we were trying to understand the idea that there is a humanness to the composition of the Holy Prophet and the great prophets and the Imams, who we generally call infallible, and they are infallible in one sense for sure. But we don't want to take it to that level where, first of all, of course, we don't want to equate anybody ever to God's purity and God's level of who he is. Of course, that becomes shirk. And it is very important to be mindful of that, because a lot of times we see that Quran is referring to this idea of getting lost in comparing something of form with comparing it with the formless. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a formless entity. He is the only entity. And where the older religions lost their path was when they equated something of the form to the God, and that's where they lost their path. And we know that the Quran is very explicit in trying to remind us again and again about this this deviation. So the reason Quran is so real and so applicable and so approachable for us even today is because Quran is talking about ideas of human character, human fitra, human tendencies that are everlasting, because Allah knows our composition, who we are. And over centuries, human beings have tried to deify something concrete and deify that concrete because the abstract is so untangible, because it slips out of our hands, because it is not something you can hold on to. It's not something you can just, make sense of. And that is the idea here, that should we really think that if we can find something that we can hold within our hand that doesn't slip away as something that is better than that which is abstract, constantly evolving, constantly changing, it's like something that you kind of go near to catch, and then it just transforms and becomes something else, and then you keep going after it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a mystery, and that's why those who go after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who go looking for him, are called mystics, because they're trying to resolve this mystery. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this liqa Allah, the meeting with Allah, the coming to face with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is a journey of an infinite nature. And so when a human being tries to deify something, put it into a form, it becomes shirk, because that becomes a place of stopping the journey. that becomes a place of saying, I found something which is not transmuting anymore, something which is not evolving anymore, something which is stagnant and stable, and something that doesn't need to be explored any further. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were to be put into a form, then that would put limitation on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah is infinite. And I have repeated this again and again, that the true nature of Tawheed lies in the nature of infinity of God. Because something which is infinite doesn't have a boundary. And if it doesn't have a boundary, then that is the entity that never ends. If it doesn't end somewhere, another thing doesn't begin beyond it. That means that one entity will continue to exist in all planes, realms, and dimensions without thing number two beginning, ever beginning. And that is where the oneness of God comes in, because if he is infinite, then he is one. And the nature of infinity needs for us then requires, it is obligatory and compulsory to understand that for something to be infinite, it has to be limitless. And to limit it into a human being or a form then is to put a limit to something which is infinite, which is contradictory and conflicting with the nature of God. So we don't want to deify a human being because it will go against the nature of Tawheed, which is the principle of being a Muslim. And so we see that when we were talking about the Holy Prophet, it is very important to understand that the Holy Prophet, the Imams and the A'imma and the Ulul Azam prophets, they all were an image of God, a representative of God. They were role models for us in the way the journey has to be taken, in the way we have to keep striving and keep changing and keep moving and keep on evolving every single day. And I always repeat this, that the Holy Prophet said that a person whose 2 days are equal is not of us, is not from my nation, is not a believer. Because someone who believes, so this is where I think for me I get goosebumps. Someone who believes in what? Someone who believes has faith in what? Someone who believes will be a believer, will be part of the nation of the Holy Prophet. Who is the nation? Who is part of the nation of the Holy Prophet is not somebody who is born a Muslim with a label, not somebody who identifies themselves with a particular ethnicity, skin color, region, religion, class. Somebody who can be part of the nation of the Holy Prophet, who can be part of the Ummah, will be somebody who can identify with the characteristics, the principles to live by of what the Prophet taught us. And what the Holy Prophet constantly reminds us of is that you are on a journey. You are on a journey of constantly growing and evolving. Don't remain a seed. Don't remain where you are. You've got to be striving. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in the Quran that each one of you are striving to meet me. And then who is God? God is perfection. God is perfection. We are always striving for perfection. All human beings have been hardwired to seek perfection. And this is something we talk about again and again. We look for the most beautiful thing. We look for the most fresh flowers. We look for the best designer. We want to get the best house. We're intrinsically wired to desire the best, the perfect, because God is perfect. And every time we strive for something which is beautiful, which is perfect, intrinsically it's coming from that one desire to seek God. Intrinsically, the desire is seeking that higher power, the source that is immaculate and pure and one and infinite. So in terms of emulation, in terms of finding a role model, the Quran is very, very explicit in constantly warning us not to fall prey to what the ancestors used to do, not to fall prey to what became custom of the past. Even the Christians are warned that absolutely not. Jesus was not God himself. Jesus was not the Son of God. Be very, very mindful. And as a Muslim, then, like I said, the Quran is for all times. It has to be very, very practical and working for me today. Why am I being reminded of these ideas of God not be deified? So we look at the dua of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Hazrat Ibrahim is saying, "Oh Allah, do not make my progeny one of those who worship idols." And the reason Hazrat Ibrahim is praying is because his dua is very, very pertinent to us even today. Now, look, keeping in mind that Hazrat Ibrahim was one of the prophets who was at one of the highest statures with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the highest positions. And we see that he is praying, "Oh Allah, protect me and my progeny from the worship of idols." We would say, I mean, even in our lifetime, the way we are educated and whatnot, I mean, if someone were to say this robot made you, or would you think that this robot is God? A robot is actually a moving statue, right? So if a little child would not be able to believe that something that a human being makes, a robot is something made by a human being, how can a robot make me, right? And there's a whole, discussion, debate, argument on and rebuttals about, atheist and non-atheistic ideas, and to understand who made who and God and oneness and all that. That's a completely different debate and idea. But what my point here is that if it is so simple for the most simplest of us to understand that no, God cannot be a robot or a statue, then why would Ibrahim, one of the best prophets at one of the highest positions, make this dua? Why was he fearing this? What was the fear? Is because, again, human beings, they get scared of change. Change is something that takes away from us the stability and the certainty and the safety of knowing what's to come. So if we have something same happening to us every single day, it gives us that sense of security, of certainty that perhaps my day to day will be the same as yesterday. And I should just go on mastering how to live the same day again and again. If you're learning a skill and you just got to do the same thing again and again and again, you keep getting better at it. And then one day you master it. And when you've mastered it, you feel like you've achieved something. Now, there's no mistake of frustration, there's no frustration coming through making mistakes. There is no shame and guilt of making mistakes and falling. There is no surprises. Okay. And that stability keeps us in status quo. And that just makes us complacent, and it gives us a sense of security. And we like that. We like that sense of security. That is the reason why we seek goals like having a house, having a car, having a good degree, all of that. And I'm not saying that I'm against any of that. I'm just saying they should not be the goals, but they need to be the means. Always. Everything needs to be the means and not the goal. But if we make these things the goal, thinking that this is it and this is my life, and if I achieve this, then I am set. Then tomorrow morning when I wake up, it will be the same old day and I can just go about doing my dandy life. And does that ever happen to anybody? No matter how much stability we try to look for, no matter how much stability we try to carve out for ourselves, life is just going to throw you fun-filled adventures every single day, something new will come up. If nothing else, your water pipe is going to break and you'll need the plumber coming in exactly when you have your friends coming over. And life will just keep making you stay on your toes. So there's a sense of change and evolution and mastering change, which is life. Life is not about mastering the same day every day. Life is about mastering a different day every day, to become comfortable with fear, to become comfortable with change, to become comfortable with challenge. And that gives us the fuel to keep growing, to keep challenging challenge itself. And then we become, invincible. And then no matter what comes, it becomes like when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. If we don't go into that mindset, sadly, we keep getting thrown off. And the idea of change is what starts to give us anxiety and stress. Because here you were calm, you would wake up, you'd have your tea and everything, and you wake up and there's news of some funeral. There's news of some fire nearby. There's news of some, something, some teenage getting pregnant, something, And this is what creates change for growth. And this change for growth then becomes a means for us to not stay stagnant. And in today's world, when things are changing much, much faster than they ever did earlier, we have youngest billionaires, we have newest innovations, we have news at the tip of our hands, we have all of this change that's happening so fast. Every day you wake up, iPhone has a new update, Facebook is upgrading its interface. I was thrown off. I mean, I used to feel very proud of myself at one point that I'm a techie and I can handle all kinds of social media really well, and I can deal with new things. And I'm really like those one of cool moms who will be ahead of their kids knowing what's going on. And now I struggle with TikTok and I don't know how to make sense of Snapchat. And recently, like a couple of months ago, I had deleted my Facebook because the social media was getting really overwhelming, and I thought I'll just stick to Instagram. And then for some reason, I mean, this is what they do, right? They keep you on your toes. So I had to reconnect myself to Facebook for something important. Otherwise, it was just not working. And I went back to Facebook after a couple of months, and the whole face of Facebook was changed. And it was like, it totally threw me off. I felt like I messaged my friends and I said, guys, I just feel like I'm in some alien land, in some virtual reality. I just can't get through on the new Facebook interface because I haven't used it for a while. And I used to think, Facebook is so easy for me. And now that's gone. So that throws you off, right? It frustrates you. It makes you feel like you're not good enough. It makes you feel like, have I lost it? Will I be able to handle it? Will I be able to manage this? It gives you a sense of challenge. And eventually I did conquer my fear and get through. But I'm still very uncomfortable with the new face of Facebook. So what I'm trying to say here is that the levels of anxiety and the levels of panic and depression that we're seeing in today's life is coming from a couple of these intrinsic ideas within us that need reevaluation. So on the one hand, challenge daunts us and we want stability and want things to stay the same, so that we can find some sanity. And yet, on the other hand, we have become addicted to stimulation. We want new content every second. And I see kids just flipping through posts on Instagram, one after another, one after another, one after another. they don't even have the sense of patience to just hold it and watch a video for a good 20 seconds. They just want to watch it and change, watch it and change, watch it and change. And on the one hand, they want all this stimulation and change and sense of new things to keep them entertained. But on the other hand, all of this change is making us less and less able to face the challenges of life. And we've become uh, uh, scared of this constant change, perhaps because we have not grown enough in our psyche, in our true evolution, to understand how fast am I supposed to grow. And there is so much anxiety, and there is so much, um, you know, restlessness. So yesterday I was sitting on my roof and I was meditating and I was just sitting, and after that, I just gave myself a few moments of just sitting idle. And I was just thinking that long, long ago, when I was 6 or 8 years old, I used to visit my grandparents. There was no iPad, no smartphone. There were not a million channels on our television here in Pakistan, at least. We just had one channel that would start at 7 p.m. So the whole day we didn't have much to watch. And I just remembering lying down idle in the living room on the sofa, staring at the ceiling, making fun images out of the way the fan was rotating in the ceiling, and trying to catch the wings of fan. I don't know if anybody can relate to that. I mean, I used to do that. I wanted to see where the exact wing of the fan was when it was going round and round in the ceiling. And these were just some idle things we used to do once upon a time that used to give us a lot of rest and stillness and a calm. And then there would be playtime when the cousins would come out and we would play together. And I was just realizing that now there's this addiction for constantly moving from one thing to another. I was also realizing that now when I put my son to sleep, even when I put him to sleep, a lot of times I want to play a verse of the Quran or play a zikr on YouTube. And generally we get distracted by the ads or something in the middle. And my son will say, Mama, I want to watch this and I want to watch that. And then we would skip between different kinds of zikr and skip between different kinds of recitations of Quran. And sometimes it lost the plot that zikr was supposed to calm us down and give us that sense of rest so we can relax into more sleepy state. And so now I have done this deliberate effort that I don't even take my phone with me into my son's bedroom. I just try to recite something myself. I tell him to recite something and we read a story, make up a story or something. And interestingly, 2 days ago, he was not sleeping for a good 2-3 hours. And for those 2-3 hours, I made a very deliberate decision that I will not get up, I will not start doing something, I will not start playing anything, I will not go and get my phone. I did nothing. And we just stayed in bed. And it reminded me of a line from a book I was reading recently, The Road Less Traveled. A lot of you know about that book. And he says something about expressing love to children. And he says that expressing love to children in its best expression is when you're just with your child spending time and your child feels like you have nowhere else to go and you have nothing else to do and you're just with that child in a sense of presence in that moment. So I remembered that and I just told myself I'm not going to budge, I'm not going to move, I'm not going to take him and start watching something or doing anything. We just stayed in bed for 2-3 hours And it was such a different experience after such a long time. And it felt good. It was a good feeling to just be with yourself, with your child, and just enjoy those moments and notice little things. So, in this frenzy these days, we are moving between constant stimulation and constant change. And on the other hand, not really changing on the inside, not embracing change on the inside. Constantly being stimulated is making us anxious. And
7 people, not bad. Fatma Patel is joined. How come Nasim is not there? Nasim is not there. That's why probably so. Oh, there she is. She's
her. I can see her. She's here. Assalamu alaikum. Okay. I can see all you guys here. So, okay. So, yeah. So, moving forward now, I just think that we went a bit more into the detail of not deifying a person and not giving them the status that God deserves. And that discussion took us into the idea of how we want to do that because we don't want change. We don't want to evolve. We want something that is known and understood. That is why we also stop on the surface. We also stop on the surface of the personality and the life of the Holy Prophet. We stop on the surface of the laws given in Quran. We want to stop at everything which is literal because it is in a form. Anything beyond form that goes into essence has this intrinsic quality of being fluid. So it keeps changing. And I'm also reading a very interesting book these days by Daniel Shapiro, and it's called Negotiating the Non-Negotiable, and I really recommend everyone to read it. I've just begun and I'm so excited to read it. And he's starting to talk about the idea of identity. And he talks about Alice in the Wonderland. And he says that somebody asks Alice, "Who are you?" He says the hookah smoking caterpillar is asking Alice, "Who are you?" And Alice replies saying, "I really don't know who I am right now. I do know that I have changed since the time I woke up this morning." Okay. So what he points out is that although Alice knows that she's still Alice, Alice also has an understanding that since morning she has changed a couple of times. And what he's pointing to over here is the idea that human beings have a part of us that is fixed, but there's a huge part of our identity that is fluid. And the game of evolving as a human being then works between the fluid part of identity and the fixed part of identity. And if we can explore this fluidity, we can use it to our benefit to keep evolving. And if we can explore the fixed part of our identity, we can work towards understanding what is it that is fixed and how we can bring a sense of change in even the fixed. But we can't do that if we don't understand ourselves, what identity is, what are the fluid parts and what are the fixed parts. But what we want to do to find a sense of stability generally is that we want to stay fixed in all our parts of identity so that there is no change, there is no sense of instability, right? Instability, there's no sense of instability. I was reading an article just before the class, Ghulam uncle, I think I would call him my mentor. He shared an article of a very, very great man with me, Salim Sajidina, I think. And if you guys can find his, the article written on him online, please do, because whether we agree with it or not, whether we agree with all parts of his life or not, what is extraordinary about a human being is that they have the courage to explore, change, challenge, And I realized something, and this is where honesty and truth have to play an important part. Stagnation and staying in one place comes from it comes from a lot of fears, but it also comes from a place of not being honest. What I want to be honest here and say is that when I was reading the article, after reading the first few lines, I started enjoying the fact that every new line had something new to say about him. So, in the article, because it was discussing his life and it was a tribute to his life, and may God bless his soul, because this man's life was so extraordinary with some new things happening in every new phase of his life. When you're reading the article, you're actually expecting something new in every new line, just like kids expect something new on Instagram with every new post. Just like we want to be entertained with a new twist and a turn in a story, right? And this is a person's life. It's not a movie. It's not a drama. It is his life. How extraordinary it is to read somebody's life, which is so exciting that in every new line, there is something new being discussed. It shows that this person had the courage to be a new person, perhaps if not every day, but every few days, to give a chance to what was brewing within him to manifest on the outside, to have the courage and the faith to be a new person every day. And the Holy Prophet is saying, if your 2 days are equal, you're not one of my believers. This man, the gentle soul, Mr. Salim Sachedina that I'm referring to, had a faith, right? He had a belief. He had belief that God was holding him and loving him and nurturing him and supporting him. If you read biographies or autobiographies of people like him who change the world, who do new things, who break barriers, who break the glass ceilings, who go ahead and do amazing things, who inspire us and leave a legacy, you will always find that these are people who are called troublemakers and rebels because they are giving other people who are stagnant, other people who are not moving, a sense of lack. That your life is capable of being so big and exciting and full of adventure, and you are just sufficing and becoming comfortable with this simple, small idea. But people who believe that God has got their back, that God is supporting them, that God is loving them, that they're in the protection of God, like Imam Zainul Abidin says in his dua, right? That God, your mercy enables me to falter at times because I have so much faith in you. What do I do? Truly, in my heart, I feel so loved and supported. I tend to, go here and there a bit, and then I come back. This is Imam Zainul Abidin, right? So when we have that kind of faith, be honest, be really, really honest. Think beyond the dogma of what we are taught and just be really honest and think, don't we all yearn for an extraordinary life? Why do people like Oprah and, Elon Musk and legends who are changing the world inspire us? Why do millions of people feel drawn towards human beings like that who are larger than life, who are constantly the change makers? Of course, they're condemned and they are criticized and they are constantly put in front of a jury and judged, but then they have this element of glory which inspires all of us. And we got to be honest. And the one thing that we see in them is that they have faith. And they have faith in a power which is greater than their helplessness, a power which is greater than their limitedness. They have a power where they can come and believe in dreams, you know? And they say, if you don't ever dream, how will your dreams ever come true? So dream the impossible, dream big, dream so much that it makes you scared, right? And we see that this word scared comes from a place of fear and anxiety and fear of change. And to put faith over fear is the gist of the journey of the Holy Prophet. Because a Holy Prophet, we saw in the last episode that he is constantly challenged. His life is not stable. He's born an orphan, he loses his mother, he loses his grandfather, he loses his uncle, he gets to a place of stability with his wife, and then he loses his wife. And then he has to, go on with his journey of, expansion of the religion, of spreading the word of God. We see him interacting with statesmen in the world. There's migration, there's constant change, there's a constant acceptance of the flow of life which is being given to him. There's no resistance. He has to leave Makkah and he's in the cave, and you see miracles, and then he's going into Medina and setting up a new country, new state. And then first they were real friends, now there are hypocrites, then there are battles, then there are marriages with the widows, and then he's criticized for those marriages. And you just constantly see with every revelation of Quran, there is something new being given to the Prophet to evolve into, to change. First, there's a law, a milder law on alcohol, then it's more stronger, then it's more stronger, then there is the rule of prayer, then there's the rule of fasting. So you see that the Holy Prophet had this expansive soul to embrace change every given moment. With every revelation, he is ready to embrace change. He is ready to embrace the unknown. When you are given laws from God at such proximity of time, constantly in frequency, something like prayer, which is given and then it's slow and then it becomes 5 times a day. Imagine you had set up your day in a way that, a particular time of the day was given to your kids or wife or your friends or the hammam. And then God says, wait a second, there will be a call to prayer 5 times a day, and you got to leave whatever you're doing and you got to go and pray in the mosque. You have to change your whole routine. You were busy with your kids and now they're whining, Dad, you're not playing with me, or wife is saying you're not giving me time, or the businessman is saying, well, we used to do our meetings at this time, or you had to go to the hammam with your friends at that, and now it's all changing. And he's okay with that change. He's totally okay and ready and surrendered to that change. Life is a metaphor for that. The life of the Holy Prophet is a metaphor for that greater journey. You're constantly being told to not stay stagnant, and life will make sure that you are in a state of change. So in this idea of not deifying a human being is the whole philosophy of doing a life, which can't be contained in a definition. It can't be contained in a description. It can't be contained in some words, can't be contained in a routine that habitually happens every day. I was at a retreat recently. It was a 1-day painting retreat by the beach. And, I asked someone what you do. And they said, I would like to quote my friend on whose visiting card was written, I am who I am and I do as I please. And it was beautiful because you don't label yourself, you don't restrict yourself, you allow yourself to flow, you allow yourself to be who you're meant to be that day. And I was reading an article which I mentioned earlier, where this person was saying that the best thing about my work is that I don't have a label to what I do, and that gives me the freedom to do something different every day. He was an artist, he was a wood sculptor, he was a furniture maker, designer, he was an artist, painter, and he was saying that I just make a table and I call it art, and I don't need to be an artist to make a table, and I don't need to be a craftsman to make a table. It's just me making a table that I love, and that's who I am. And it just gives me the freedom to be whoever I need to be on that particular day. And that is the human journey, to be who you're meant to be on that particular day. And a lot of times doing that kind of life can, again, give rise to a lot of voices in your head, because you don't fit in. You become a misfit. You become someone who can't be put in a box. And sometimes I see myself like that, because I started out as a student in science, then went into humanities, then I've been studying religion, became a public speaker, went into psychology, started working with mental science, and then got into art and did traditional art, and after doing abstract art for a while. And then I started doing all these different things. And now, I'm doing this, and there are interviews that I'm doing, the podcasts, and something new is happening. And it's daunting because people can't put you in a box. So when they ask you, what are you, or who you are and what you do, either you have a long list of things to say, or you have nothing to say, because you really can't put yourself in one title. I'm not a psychologist, and I'm not a preacher, and I'm not an artist only. So what do you do? So a lot of times when I say things which can be controversial, or people don't understand, or don't agree, or something like that, then I hear very funny stories. Like, people will say, like, I've been planted as an agent, which was the funniest, or something like that, ridiculous. Like, you're like, oh wow, okay, I didn't see that coming, because people have a tendency to put you into boxes, and they doubt your intentions, because intentions is not something people can see. And my purpose in sharing this about my own personal journey is to revive that part of you that might have gotten scared of something someone said, and made you feel smaller, made you feel like something was wrong with you. But change is part of this human journey. Change is part of Tawheed, because change and Tawheed are connected by the idea of faith. It takes a lot of faith to keep changing. And if our faith is grounded in the one supreme being who's got your back, who's loving you and protecting you and taking care of your journey by the hand, because your intentions are in the right place and you're sincere to your calling, then really there's nothing to fear, because fear is just a veil to God. Fear is just a veil to faith. Fear is just a veil to human perfection. Fear constricts us, makes us small. It disables us and paralyzes us, and it prevents us from reaching our highest potential. Interestingly, I have not touched upon any of the things I had planned to talk about today. And I got totally sidetracked with my enthusiasm about this subject. But the one thing that I really, really wanted to share on a very academic level is that after last time's discussion on the Shafaat and the infallibility of the Prophet, somebody had asked me a question some time ago. Why is it that particularly the Shias have gone into the idea of this perfection of the Imams and the Prophets, when clearly I invite you all to not rely on me. I'm a flawed human being. I make mistakes. Don't rely on me, but go and look into the Quran and look at all the places where the prophets themselves are proclaiming with quote unquote, like they're quoted sentences, words from the mouths of the Prophet, where they are humbling themselves and saying, God, I made a mistake, right? When Hazrat Musa hits a man and he dies, when Hazrat Musa pulls the beard of Hazrat Harun in anger after he comes back from the 40-day retreat, when Hazrat Yunus, Zannun, leaves his nation, and he said, right, La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minaz zalimin. I have put myself among those who have done zulm. We see the dua of Hazrat Adam. Hazrat Adam is making a dua. Allah has quoted the dua of Hazrat Adam, Rabbana zalamna. Oh my Lord, oh my nourisher, we have become those who have done zulm on ourselves, right? So again and again, we see very, very obvious signs that these people are talking in very human terms. They're talking in very humbled and resigned states to God. They're feeling like they have faltered. The sentiment has to be seen. The fact that we fall into defending them, and then we twist and turn and defend the words of Quran and don't see it for what they are because of our preconceived notion that we need to defend these people, we need to protect these people, we need to protect the honor of these people, is not fair, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would never dishonor his prophet. Why would he use words that would dishonor his beautiful, most beloved messengers? Allah would never do that. And Allah would not leave the responsibility of protecting his perfect beings on imperfect beings like us. So we are nobody. We're not anybody to do that. But if we were to look at the Quran with all honesty, like I said, be really, really honest and truthful, and we were to be honest with what we truly feel deep down inside and see the honest question of saying, but why? And academically speaking, when I asked my teacher, he said that this whole discussion stems from this root cause, where when the revelations came to the prophets, the Psalms came to David and Ibrahim, and when the books came to, Torah, Zabur, Injil, and the Quran Majid, when these were descending on the hearts of the prophets and when they gave these books to their people, there was a question of the purity of the word. It was a question of the reliability and the perfection of the word. So for that, we see this verse in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in verse 4, ayah number 59, Atiullaha wa atiul, sorry, no, not this verse. Just a second. I'm going to find, yeah. No, so in Surah number 53, verse 3 to 5, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنَّا هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ عَلَّمَهُ شَدِيدُ الْقَوَىٰ. So it means, nor does he, the prophet, speak from his own desire. He's not but a revelation revealed. He was taught by one mighty in power. So in Surah Najm, Allah is giving witness to the fact that whatever revelation is coming from the prophet, it has been revealed to him. So don't doubt the revelation. That he doesn't speak of his own desire. So this is the verse, which is a very, very valid verse for us to wonder whether there was anything that was part of the life or the speech of the prophet, which may have not been perfect, right? Of any of the prophets for that matter. And over here, I invite you all to have this choice of what you want to choose. And the choice is that some scholars believe that every single aspect and every single moment of the life of the prophet was enshrined inside the protection of God, God made sure it was perfect and it was top notch and it was maintained by a higher hand in keeping it pure and perfect. While everything, right? But then there's a discussion where some scholars believe, and there's a few of them who believe that both in Shia and Sunni schools of thought, where they feel that no, God protected the revelation of the Quran. And that's why in those moments when only the revelation was coming, was that the revelation protected in God's protection and there could be made no mistake. We even see in Surah Ala, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Holy Prophet, "Sanukri'uka fala tansa." Don't worry, because the Holy Prophet used to rush and hurry in remembering the verses and repeating them and noting them and registering them in however the way he could, because he used to be afraid that he might forget. And Allah is saying, don't worry, I will protect it. You don't need to. Sanukri'uka fala tansa. We will make you remember. Now, this verse of Surah Ala, where Allah is saying, don't worry, I will protect it, and the Prophet is rushing so that he doesn't forget, says something. To me, it says that there were times when the Prophet perhaps had moments of forgetfulness, like all humans do. We put something somewhere and we forget. Very simple thing. And as a human being, you have that tendency, so you are cautious. If you knew, number one, that you never forget anything, and you knew I've been blessed with a superpower, number one, then you would not be doubtful of yourself, number one. Number two, if you were, aware of this godly hand, and you knew that everything is protected and I'm not going to forget, then why would you rush? Why would you be anxious in making sure that you keep it safe? It's because there were times when the Holy Prophet is aware that I am perhaps not at that level of perfection in remembering or retaining or whatever, that I need to go out of my way and make an extra effort and be cautious. And that happens to the best of us. I'm sure, the best doctors, the best lawyers, the nerds who read, who have photographic memory, the best of us, with the best of powers to retain. Sometimes when something is really, really precious, we want to make sure that there is no doubt in making a mistake over there. So while I mean no disrespect to the beauty and the excellence, of the Holy Prophet, of the Aimma, of the Imams, what I do want to bring here to our understanding and just a choice that we can choose to believe in is that, was he someone who was not a human being at all? And he was someone of, the other realm, was just pretending to live a human life, who had extra powers, and he was protected by an extra unseen power that made everything not so human for him and made sure that everything was perfect? Or he was the most excellent human being? Because if he was the most excellent human being, then I can strive to be like him, because he was of my species. And I can look up to him and say, he was an excellent human being. And I want that. I want to aspire and get inspired by that excellence. But even if he was not even the same species, if he was somebody else, then why would I even look up to someone like that and ever feel that that can be my role model? And in doing so, in understanding that he was an exceptional human being, we find the inspiration to follow him, to look up to them, to want to live life like him, to follow in the footsteps of his Uswatul Hasana, and look at it from that perspective. So we have that choice of distinguishing these things and living by our own understanding and our own capacity of gauging. And we all have that. So alhamdulillah, for this session, I think I'm almost done with my time. I started a little late, but I am almost there. I won't start anything new. So I will now check my chat if you have anything to share. And we have a few of us today, so thank you for joining. I have now made it a point that I share some of the chat in my session. But before I go to the chat, with your permission, I can put my hands up with all of you in this prayer together with me and make a dua. And today I'm really, really inspired to feel that the power of collective prayer is so strong. It is so powerful that whether you're with me live or whether you join this session as a recording, I invite you to feel this power that collective energy holds and join together, because we're all connected, we're all one, we're all part of that one life energy, that source, that consciousness. And Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, O Allah, we are all your humble servants. We're humbled by what life throws at us every day. We struggle and we strive. Oh Allah, please do not look at our actions and the outcomes of our actions, but help us and see the sincerity of our intentions, and see the sincerity of our striving, and see the sincerity that comes through our confusions and doubts and helplessness. Oh Allah, we come to you in a state of poverty. Oh Allah, in the words of Imam Ali, who is going to fill us if not you? Would not a fakir, would not a beggar come to the master? And if not the master, then who? Oh Allah, we come to you as beggars. Oh Allah, we come to you. We know you never return anyone empty-handed. Oh Allah, what honor would it be for us that we become seekers of only you and we return with only you and none of ourselves. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. Thank you for joining me in that prayer. I will now read from the chat. Can you please explain the difference between knowing God and believing in God? Okay, this is a really beautiful question, and I'm excited to share my insights, which may be wrong, and I'm here to learn. For me, the answer to this question is that knowing is also interpreted in believing sometimes. So I will explain that in a bit. But just for face value, knowing is just this understanding from your mind. And if the mind reads something, sees something, senses it with the five senses, then we say we know something. So I think on face value, we can say that for most of us, knowing God is just reading about God, hearing about God, talking about God, hearing from a scholar talk about God, hearing from a mystic even share their experiences about God. Oh, I was there at this experience, I experienced God. This is still their experience, which they experienced in many different modalities, in many different dimensions of their being, in many different faculties. But you only know about it. I only know about it because I've only read it. So for me, the knowing just stays on the surface. But believing in God is something nobody can take away from us. Because when we believe in something, it's not coming from the mind. It's not coming from a faculty of logical analysis. Believing is something that seeps deep into your being, somewhere within us, a dimension of us, which cannot control what we believe in. That is why I can say that it's something that happens on a subconscious level. It happens as an inner deep-seated experience that the soul experiences, subconscious experiences, and believing that way would then mean something that happens from the heart. When somebody's telling us something, when I'm telling you something, you will have knowledge of what I'm saying. Fatma said, quote unquote, this. That's just knowing what I say. But if you know me long enough, if you live with me, if you know my character, if you have had real life experiences with me, then you might start to believe me or not believe me. In my humanness, I may do something insanely inappropriate, and you'd be like, I'm sorry, I can't believe you because this is what you did. So you can say, okay, now I believe her, or now I don't believe her. So it's coming from a deeper place of experience is what believing would be. And when we awaken to our spiritual journey and our soul, then certain experiences happen where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَالَّذِي أَنزَلَ السَّكِينَةَ فِي قُلُوبِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ لِيَزْدَادُوا إِيمَانًا مَعَ إِيمَانِهِمْ. So, وَالَّذِي أَنزَلَ السَّكِينَةَ. So we sent sakina, peace, to the hearts of the believers. Sakina, هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين, to the hearts of the believers, by increasing faith over faith. So how do you get faith over faith? Is when you put faith in God, and then God comes through for you. You were in a difficult situation, you prayed to God, you had no other way, and God came through for you. And now your faith has been doubled. There's a faith over faith. You put in faith in Him, and now He's given you a reason to have faith in Him. So, Sakinata fi qulubil mu'minina li yazdadu zyada, increase imana ma imanin, increase your faith with faith. So that is a believing that comes with experience. Beautiful quote by Rumi about God. This I'm reading from my chat. Remember God so much that you are forgotten. Subhanallah. Yeah, and this was our prayer today, that may we forget ourselves and there's only Him. And that is the true journey. Like I always like to quote Imam Khomeini's book, Light Within Me. He says that eventually the journey of the mystic is such that he stops saying, God, I seek you, I want you. And he just comes to a sentence where he says, God is worthy. That's it. Even in the sentence, there is no I. It's just, God, you're worthy. That's it. There's no I think you're worthy, I love you, nothing. You just say, God, you're worthy. So your being changes, right? And if in thirst you drink water from a cup, you see God in it. If in thirst you drink water from a cup, you see God in it. I think it's a beautiful quote. I've never heard or read it before. But what it's saying is, and Uncle, please, you are most welcome to participate, join and explain this. What I'm seeing in this is seeing the extraordinary in the mundane, seeing the beauty of God in everything and everywhere we turn. Allah says in the Quran, wherever you turn is the face of God. Allah says, I did not create you except that you worship me. And I think in true sense, worship is when you are in awe and in love with something or someone so much that they never leave your mind and you are obsessed with them. And you can't stop thinking of them and remembering them, right? So that's the state of love and ishq. Like when kids talk about their crush, you're infatuated, and you see that everywhere. And water is a really, really phenomenal creation of God. Mystics say that water has very, very lofty, higher realities and higher realms. And the water of this world is just a metaphor, just a very watered down image of something much higher in the higher realities. Water is connected to ocean, water is connected to knowledge. So these are just physical manifestations of those higher realities. I read something from an author I will be doing a podcast with by the end of this month, Erin Lane. And on Instagram, she's written her description. You know how I was saying we describe ourselves, we give ourselves this description. This is who I am, art enthusiast or collector or a painter or something. In her Instagram, she's written that she's a God nerd. And I loved it. She's a God nerd. And she sent out a post, and in the end, she said, what did she say? There's God going on in it. God's going on in it, or something like that. I don't know exactly how she wrote it, but it was as if she's eating, drinking God. For her, everywhere there's God. There's God going on everywhere, right? God's going on everywhere. When the plant is growing, when the seed is sprouting, when I'm talking, when I'm blinking, when my eyelashes, everything is God. So there's God going on in everything. And she described herself as God nerd. And I was so impressed. I was like, wow, that's devotion. That's connection. So thank you guys for a wonderful, wonderful, enriching, energizing session. Thank you for your presence, for being in this space. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful weekend. And please remember me and my family in your prayers. Lots of love. Take care. Khuda Hafiz.